Hi guys, and welcome to another Sailing Nendaz video. In this week's episode, we tackle some more boat jobs. We repair a leaky hatch, fit our new anchor, fix a dodgy ignition, and spend our first night at anchor. So, let's get to it!
We're now fighting the hatch. We've taken off the glass on the hatch because we had a leak. That weather is coming straight for us, but Joe's determined it's not going to hit us. He's going to Screwfix, which is 20 minutes away, to go and get silicone. So I've got 20 minutes to try and get all of the silicone out of this before he gets back. Wish me luck! Turns out Joe was right and the weather didn't hit, but that did still leave me with the rather tedious job of scraping silicone out of the old hatch frame. I was told it was of the utmost importance that I removed all of this old silicone, so that we had a clean surface for the new stuff to bond to. He's probably right on that too. Joe used some sealant remover stuff he found at a DIY store. This stuff worked great, it turned the old silicone into a soft jelly that you can then scrape away. We then taped the frame, taped the acrylic window, and lay a lot of new black silicone. Laying the silicone was great because it meant we had a really good seal on the hatch, but the downside was a lot of squeeze out. The clean-up job took quite a while as the tape didn't really stick to the metal frame all that well. I then had to get back to work and Joe finished off the anchor preparation.
Hello. So, I made some research. What? I made some progress on the anchor decisions. I made a very complicated, very fancy template I printed offline. So this is the Rocna 25 template with some paper and some cardboard backing. very expertly made and extremely technological. It would sort of sit roughly there. So my worry was that it would, basically the sort of spike of the anchor would be hitting the bow in sort of a resting position, and it doesn't look like that's the case. It looks like that's fine. I guess the other thing I need to think about here is actually, easy, don't fall in. The tail of the anchor will finish like right up in this chain locker. So I might need to modify that, but I can't see any reason why this wouldn't work, and it'll be a beast of an anchor. So when you let the anchor go down, we'd have to be careful that it didn't foul the bow, which it probably would be close, and then it would sort of drop down and go blop. But now I've got the anchor size, I now need to look at what chain size would be appropriate with that anchor, because it's only as strong as the weakest link. So if I have a really strong anchor, it's totally pointless if you've got like tiny little chain. So first off, I had to figure out what chain we already had on the boat. I got out my handy dandy calipers, my new favourite tool by the way, and set to work on measuring the chain. It turns out that buying boat chain is quite complicated, like all things boat. Whilst my chain was 10mm, and the windlass was designed for 10mm chain, there are two different types of 10mm chain, ISO or DIN. The link sizes are slightly different on either. Pick the wrong size and the chain could jump out the windlass, which is quite dangerous. Anyway, after a lot of careful measuring with my handy dandy calipers, I decided I needed to buy 10mm ISO chain and 75 meters of it. Hi guys, it's quite windy today. But I'm quite excited because I have something to show you. Dun dun dun! It's this ginormous anchor. I'm slightly nervous that it's not going to fit. Well, I'm pretty certain that it's not going to fit. But at the moment I've just unshackled the anchor, and now I'm just unfastening it. Okay, now I need to be careful because the anchor just moved. Oh, I've only got one hand here. Right, the anchor is free from the boat. Now I just need to move it off the boat. Oi! Heavy. Okay. The beast. Let's lift the beast. Yeah. Let's see roughly what the damage is. It goes on this roller. Oh, guys. Okay, the spiky bit, I don't think it touches the hull. And the spine goes right up to the windlass. So that's amazing because it means we don't need to go messing around with changing any of this front roller. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm going to unwrap it. I'm going to need 2 hands though, so bear with me. I am using a Stanley knife, but I'm going to be very careful. I've got a track record of opening things, brand new things with Stanley knives and just ruining it. Like if it was made of fabric, I'll cut too deep and just cut through the fabric. But I'm going to be really careful here because it'll make my wife happy. Okay, I finally unwrapped it. So here's the big grand reveal. Oh. She's heavy. Oh. It's ginormous. Let's try and put it on the boat. Let's see if I can pick it up. Yeah. Look at that. She's a beauty, mate. That is a beast. That anchor says I'm in business. I'm gonna turn the camera off because I need to lash it down or shackle it so it doesn't fall off the boat. Can you imagine if if I drop the anchor and we lose it to the bottom of the marina? Hi guys. Last bit of anchor prep done, which is quite exciting because tomorrow, well actually no, tonight, sorry, we're going to go and spend our first night on anchor. So that's exciting. But what we've done is brought lots of new chain. We've got 75 meters of 10mm chain, and then we've got our 25 kilo Rocna, which should be absolutely plenty. And I've got this sort of swivel that goes a few ways, which I've just Loctited. That's all done, and yeah, we're ready to go. I've just got to load it all back into the boat now. And also chopped out, you see this corner of the anchor chain locker is different from that one. I've chopped that out, sanded it so it's all rounded and smooth. So, as you may have noticed by now, we have a dog on board. It's quite important that he learns how to use the toilet on the boat. And actually, it's been really successful so far. We were really worried that it would be a total failure. And like this entire plan of us being on a boat full time basically hinges on that little guy there learning to use the toilet on the boat. And so far, like, ow, I just stubbed my toe. So far he's cracking it. What we did is we had the artificial grass, which he used to use at home because we had a small terraced house and there was not really much of a garden or grass, so we used artificial grass. And we used it on the pontoon first to get him used to it, because it doesn't move as much, the pontoon, it feels more like land to him. And with some persuasion he's managed to use the pontoon with the grass, and this morning was the first time he's actually used the grass on the boat, so that's a massive success. I bought a new ignition switch off the internet because the current one, I think I mentioned before, current one isn't working. To start the engine we have to basically hotwire it. Take this off, I've got a haircut now. The ignition switch is like slightly different design to the old one, so it doesn't really mount very well, but it did allow me to wire it up and test out the new ignition switch, and it proves theory that the ignition switch that we had was faulty because I wired up the battery in the starter, because those two wires I do know which is which, and it was good. The engine started first time.
We are doing our first trip out the marina since we've kind of got here, which is very exciting. So we've manoeuvred out of the marina and now we're going to head round to a really local but pretty anchorage. We didn't want to go too far for our first one, so we radioed the marina and told them we're leaving, which we definitely didn't need to do. And yeah, now we're heading out to go and stay overnight somewhere, so we'll let you know how that goes. And you can see Joe did a lovely job of getting us out, and we're towing our little dinghy, and Walter's doing... Oh, and some hose pipes. Good start. At least we didn't lose that.
Yeah, we woke up and it was a lovely morning. Had a little like cup of tea, quick snack, and then Flick had to be or wanted to be back on land because she had a call at 9:30. So we're like, okay, fine. It takes like 25 minutes to get back to the marina. Start the engine, and so we pull the anchor up, and yeah, set off. But then the engine started getting really hot, so we're like, oh, like what is going on here? Like it's supposed to sit at like 80ish, like 90 maybe, like it's approaching the top end, and it was like at 90, 95, and then it was like, oh, okay, it's getting hot. Why? And then it just carried on getting hotter. It got up to 100, and then it's got to like just under 105. And basically, I turned the engine off at that point, because if it gets much hotter than that, I think you can do some fairly serious damage. I think it's mainly the exhaust manifold, like the exhaust outlet, that you damage. I don't really know. But anyway, turned it off, and then we were just this boat with no sails, because the sails have been taken off the boat because they've gone to get serviced and do some repair work on them. Just this boat sat in the middle of like Plymouth Sound, like on the edge of like a shipping lane, with like big ferries coming in and out, and all sorts of like tankers as well. We just sat there like floating, and it was like 8:30 in the morning. It was like, oh, okay, right. So then we had to get the dinghy, and I mean, thank God. I mean, that's kind of like one of the backups I knew I had. So if it did have engine problems, we had the dinghy. So what it did is like put the dinghy alongside with like 2 lines off the front and the back of it, so it sort of holds it in place, and then just use the little 6 horsepower Mercury engine off the back and just start powering the boat along, and like slowly build up speed, because otherwise it starts cavitating. You can't just go like full throttle straight away, because it's like a 14-ton boat, or well, we're not actually sure how heavy it is, between 10 and 14, or 7 and 14 tons. We really don't know, but we get hauled out today, so I'm hoping that they can tell you the weight. But yeah, and we like pootled along at like 2-3 knots, and we finally got back to the marina. Well, we got to the entrance of the marina, and the engine temp had come down to like 70 something. Remember, this is the diesel engine's turned off at this point, the actual yacht engine. So the temperature had been slowly coming down, which is good. And then we turned it back on just to get into the marina and into our berth, because we would have really struggled with the little 6 horsepower dude. So, but from the entrance of the marina to our berth is like, I don't know, 100, 200 meters. And it went from 70 to, again, like just under 100 in that like short amount of time. So like, what the hell's going on here? Like, there was raw seawater was coming in, and you could see, because all the pipes are see-through, and engine room is like super lit up now because of the silver insulation we've done, and also the lighting we've added in. So I was like, what the hell's going on? I could see water moving through the pipes. So it's like, it's not the seawater intake. And there's water coming out as well, like out the exhaust. So that's good. It can't be that. But then I noticed a kink in one of the lines, and that's because where we put the insulation, it was on the ceiling. It was like forcing the pipe around a curve, and it was kind of kinking it. So I thought, oh, maybe that's it. I cut away a section of the insulation so that pipe is no longer ever going to be kinked. So that's good to do anyway. But so then I restarted the engine in the marina in our berth. So we're okay now, we're safe. And Flick had ran off to a meeting at this point, and still the engine was like temperature going up. So I was like, what is going on? And then I didn't know. So I started like, I got out my, where's my book gone? I've got a book, a diesel book. Marine diesel engines. I started reading that, started trying to read why would an engine be overheating. It said to check oil, check coolant, but I couldn't do any of those things because the engine had just been run. And so the engine was super hot, and you can't mess with the coolant or take the lid off the cap off the coolant whilst the engine's still hot, because it can just let out, I think, like super hot steam, or it's under pressure, so it can, yeah, you could get really hot, but serious burns. So I didn't even take away the steps here in this whole time, because that's where you would access the coolant, and it's also where you would check the oil, which is one of the other things that the book said to check. But anyway, what happened was I did other boat jobs back in the marina, left it till the evening. I was like, oh, what is going on here? Like, let me just pull out these steps, see what I can see, because the engine's cooled down now. I can mess with the coolant and stuff like that. Pulled off the steps, and what do I see? Well, let me show you. This little thing is what I see on the floor under the steps. This is like totally shredded alternator belt. So, I mean, we learned a valuable lesson today, because, I mean, I guess what happened is that I should have checked before you even start the engine. You should do some pre-engine checks, like check you've got oil, check you've got coolant, and check the alternator belt. Check that there's no like serious signs of wear, or that it's not snapped and on the floor. So ours was snapped and on the floor. So when we left the anchor yesterday, the engine just overheated, because the alternator belt pumps the coolant around the engine, and the coolant goes through a bunch of very thin copper pipes, or called a heat exchanger, which also has fresh salt water running through it. So as the coolant goes through there, the salt water cools it right back down, and the coolant carries on its merry old way and cools down the engine block. But what was happening is that the alternator belt is snapped, so the coolant isn't going anywhere. It's just sat still. It's not going round in its infinite loop. It's just sat still. So it's all very well that there was seawater coming in and flowing round the heat exchanger, but it wasn't really doing much because the coolant wasn't moving as well. So there was not much transfer of heat. So I learned a pretty good lesson. Luckily, engines didn't blow up or anything like that. But I think we turned it off before anything serious happened. So yeah, I learned so much, but lots of valuable lessons. And I also know a little bit more about engines because I was troubleshooting some other ways. Like, we didn't record any of this because it was slightly stressful and we were slightly in a rush. But yeah, we made it back and we survived our first night at anchor. So that's great.